In the past, I have joked before that with men in bright pink PJs, Bronze Age Egypt, and a united Germany in 270 BC, Rome 1 might as well be more fantasy than Three Kingdoms. This video is inspired by this, and by the hundreds of comments I've seen debating if Three Kingdoms is historical or fantasy, and by Admiral Price stating that there is no historical title, just historical fantasy and fantasy. Although I agree to a certain extent, I disagree on the breakdown of this being split into two categories. In this video, I want to split Total War into 4 different categories of reality. And to do this, I should go back to a video I made on Troy before launch. This was around the time that we first heard the phrase, truth behind the myth. I disagreed at the time, and instead went along the lines of it being based on the Iliad, a book like Three Kingdoms. This, later, I now call primary source history. Rome 2, Attila, Napoleon, for example, have their roots deep in history, despite the many mistakes or misconceptions they may make. This I call secondary history Total War, where it tries to go for a historical approach, even if, at times, that could mess with the gameplay. Three Kingdoms and Troy, however, are not truth behind the myth or whatever. They're also not fully fantasy, but are primary source Total Wars. Historical in nature, but inspired from the people at the time. You are not a historian looking back, like with Rome 2. You are a person alive at the time, and the battles that you fight are not the battles that you are fighting in, but rather the story that you are hearing coming back. This is clear, as both are literally based off stories from the time. Romance of the Three Kingdoms and the Iliad. But then where does Rome 1 fit into all of this? And arguably Medieval 2. Men in bright pink pyjamas, united Germany and Bronze Age Egypt in 270 BC are neither wrote about by historians today, nor by the people back then. There is no source. This I call stereotypical history, or goofy history. History that leans more towards stereotypes to make it more recognisable or interesting, or to make up for engine limitations. Even in Medieval 2, although much more grounded than Rome, still has a united Russia, Spain and Portugal just existing, and many more. This is clearly done for familiarity. The devs did not lack historical knowledge. They knew Portugal was not a thing at the time. They knew Spain should be Castile-Leon. We know they know because I know and will now let you know what I know what they know. It is because of the heavy research that went into the starting characters. You know, they are very accurate people, so it was done so the players feel more familiar with the faction. Stereotypical history has the type of inaccuracies that you would often find in a movie, because it is simpler for the viewer. You could also call this goofy history, commercial history, casual history, and then of course we have raw fantasy. I decided to make a chart here where I rank them all. Nothing too fancy, Probably not perfect, but it gives a good idea. My personal preference is actually in the goofy historicals, but the secondary historicals I like also. Primary source historicals I am not a fan of, and I don't want to see another for quite some time. Fantasy I am down for, however I don't know a thing about Warhammer, so it is actually a bit difficult to get into it. So there we go, just a bit of theory talk on the different definitions of historical total war, in my opinion, because I did not like the simple divide of history and fantasy. I think we could have broken it down more, and this is what I tried to do here. Feel free to disagree, of course. Let me know down in the comments your own opinions. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more, and I hope to see you in the next one, tomorrow's video. But for now, goodbye.